Divine Set 13 Paralactic Clash. It's finally here, at least as of Friday, the day I'm recording this. And I wanted to make this little set discussion video just to share my thoughts of the decks that I plan on trying out / support cards upgrade decks I currently play of this set. So this video format is going to be more podcast style. I'll be pulling up the cards on screen to talk about, but I won't be reading off their effects. Otherwise, it's just going to be me sharing my thoughts on the cards. So unless you need to read the card, you can just kind of tune out and listen to what I have to say. But with that out of the way, let's just get right into it. And I'm just going to start with the, sorry, accidentally full screened OBS there, did not mean to. I want to just go overall set thoughts. So this is aligning with the new season of Vanguard, and it's focused around the Paralactic versus the Veritable. Or, in other words, the Phantom units versus the Mythisch. So the Mythisch, for the most part, are all supporting existing decks, while the Phantoms are nation-warped versions of some, actually, units we do know, such as Brandt Gate Zorga here, and other ones that we have not seen, such as the Alphard here. And as a premise, this is really neat to me. I really like this idea of seeing what these units could look like in other nations and playing with that idea. And then the Mythisch themselves, I mean, we've already seen Rafistra. We already kind of got an idea what these are going to be looking for. So nothing too crazy there, but also a few fun surprises, such as more dual nation cards, first time in a main set. The new Liel Animus and its support card. So this set I am super excited for. Just a lot of cool new decks. I mean, they're really ramping up the new deck, so it's a great set to just be able to pick up a deck and just build it straight from the set, as most of the stuff you're probably going to need is in the set anyway, or at least to make a coherent deck. Still not as much stuff to support existing decks, but still some of those, especially in the double rares. The other big thing for this set is, of course, the over triggers reprints. Always welcome to see those. And what I'm also very excited for is the effect trigger reprints. Everything except the insole front triggers. Those get printed over the summer with the new special series coming out. It's not a festival booster. It's the Legend Vanguard. I forget exactly what they call that set. But yeah, I'm always need more of these, so super excited to have another chance to pick those up. And I believe we're also getting some triggers. Where are the triggers? Yeah, more of the Cray Elemental triggers. So just more triggers as well, so I don't have to swap so much around between my decks. And we're also getting the Frieren collab. Normally I'm not super into the collab, but I actually just finished season 2 of Frieren, and I'm absolutely loving it. So I'm also excited to pick up these. And I will get more into this, but they do some really cool thematic stuff that tie to the show. So all that going to be discussing here in this video. And yeah, overall I think hype, just excited for this set. More also kind of looking towards the future. Obviously plenty of new ride lines and plenty of new cards to support, and so there's some old stuff that really fallen out of favor. But we might just be getting to the point where some stuff's just going to have to get left behind, and yeah. Any other thoughts would fit better in a more future of Vanguard style video, which we might do in the future. But let's just jump into actually discussing the different nations. And I already hear my cat screaming because I closed the door. This will be interesting. Might need to go let him in. But let's start with Dragon Empire, and we've got the new deck around Alphard Phantom. Piercing Thunder Dragon, Alphard Phantom. So this is looking to be a OTK style deck that can achieve its OTK on turn 4 and tries to achieve that OTK by making this guy massive, having a swing for 3 critical, +1 drive, so triple drive, not actually triple drive, just 3 drive checks, and prevents the opponent from calling Sentinels to Guardian Circle. So big one hit, your opponent better have an over trigger plus some other cards to guard it, or the Elementaria Sanctitude to be able to just completely bypass the guard restrict entirely. So I really like the thematic of this, just clearly defined, big, make your Vanguard big, hit for just a mass number with the guard restrict, and hope that gets you the win. Don't have a lot of that. It also reminds me a lot of the Drag Strider Luard from the Stride deck set. Really love that card, though this definitely will fall into some issues the same as that unit does as well. Notably being that it's got some silver bullets, though to be fair, decks like this a lot of times do need silver bullets since there isn't much other way to be able to survive its one hit impact. But that's just kind of part of the appeal, right? You're not playing this because you're always going to get the win. It's kind of that more gamble, like, all right, I set up my big play, swinging in, going to hit, let's see if it actually does hit. And that's really exciting. And it's one shot, obviously, because you have to bind 4 Crimson Moons, and you can only play 4 Crimson Moons in your deck at current. Which I probably should cover that card as well. Let's kind of go over that one real quick. That's actually a generic one in the double rare slot. And it is, there we go. So just a generic grade 1 order that all your Phantom decks are going to run because their Phantom skills need it to be able to bind. I mean, this is appearing to be the source of the Phantom, the Phantasm, powering those units, warping them. So it makes sense that they draw on its power to use their powerful skills. And the nice thing about this card is it pretty much make the big thing concerned with Alphard Phantom would be, well, what if I damage check one of these? Then I don't have the 4 to be able to buy the effect. Well, no problem. This could just put itself in drop and put the top card of your deck into damage zone. Easy. Nice and easy. And then from there, it's just a good card helping you find more Crimson Moons or build your board. Just pretty much a better version of Mass for the Mass decks, but this time for the Phantom decks. I also, while we're on the topic of the Crimson Moon, there's also a rare version here. By the way, I like the artwork a bit better on a side note. And that's pretty much does a lot of the same things that the Crimson Moon does. Like enveloping the planet is a crimson disease. So regarded as Crimson Moonlight, which is why you can only run a total of 4 of these cards. And this one's just a bit different. Only top, I think the other one's a top 7. I'll have to double check. But the important thing here, it's just essentially a strictly worse version of the Crimson Moonlight. But at least it's accessible. I'm kind of struggling how I feel about it because, oh yeah, it's both top 5. But the difference is if you did not reveal, you have the option to draw one, the other one does not. So slight change to this one is technically better, but not by a large margin. In terms of how I feel about this, like on the one regard, if they're going to print this card at double rare, which you need 4 copies, just like Masses was going to be expensive, I'm happy that they gave a rare option to be more affordable. That is nice for ease of accessibility. That way, if this is the card prohibiting you from playing any of these Phantom decks, you've got an alternative. That being said, since these are so integral, part of me is just like, all right, why don't you just print it at common so it's easily accessible anyway? It's not the key card of deck, it's just something that you need for all the decks. It makes sense because it's thematic to kind of the lore of the Phantasm. And then if you want to print high rarity versions, which yes, definitely print high rarity versions, that's the benefit of having it here at double rares. You get all these high rarity versions that I'm gonna have to scroll down and find. But if just make an exception for the common. Again, I don't know why you can't. Just make that exception so this card can be printed. I mean, both of them come in frame rare. Even like rare, maybe it would even be fine if it was just the rare. You got the high rarity versions of it. I guess the one thing the rare doesn't get you is the silver, but just make an exception and print it at those rarities. That's just my take on it. So, but we're in this reality, so I am happy that there is at least a budget option since they decided to push it at the double rare for the main card as well. But just not necessarily an interesting card, it's just there to make these decks work and give it another tie. Feel something unique for all the Phantom decks that obviously tie them all together in the name Phantom. Just real simple, ties in with the lore. Good stuff, not too much. There's not much deep about that card past that, but it is important context, especially since it can put itself to drop. So now you don't have to worry about damage checking it with Alphard Phantom. The other cool thing is, based on how it was worded, should be able to countercharge with it unless there's something in the rules that I missed that you can only use effects of face-up cards in the damage zone. Once it's face down, you can't reference the effect. Good rule to check. I'm going to have to do that. But getting back to Alphard, that's the general shtick of it. Really thematic card. I do like it. It feels different than a lot of the other stuff that we're getting right now that just kind of are very focused around multi-attacking, enabling stuff, and this is just big number, which I like. Some weaknesses I see with it though, like I expect this to fully exist in the fun realm because I don't expect you to want to take a card to a tournament where its whole big thing you're building up towards, the play to make, can easily be shut down by Elementary Sanctitude or an over trigger. Like that's just how runs will end. But as a fun deck, I think this definitely appeals to a group of players, and this part of the reason I'm picking it is I'm excited just to have some stupid dumb fun, just swing and hope that it works. Other things about this card, it's kind of hard to say if this is an issue until I play it, but outside of using its Phantom skill, that first effect just is very unremarkable for your ace card. I mean, power gain's awesome, retire or a discard is nice, but that's it. just feels very underwhelming overall. Like, the deck's output, unless you're going for that big OTK, is just kind of underwhelming. At least that's how it feels. We'll see how it does in practice. Other notes more on the design off front of things. The Phantom skill is worded in a very convoluted way where you actually have to finish it to figure out what you're going to do with it. And that's because you could bind 1 or 2 or 3 Crimson Moons or 4. And if you read, until end of battle gains +1 critical, and then you read, and if you bound 4 or more cards for this cost. And it's not until that line that you realize, oh no, I'm just going for bind 4 or more for the OTK. So really, to really demonstrate what this card is going to do in practice, it should just read bind 4 Crimson Moon cards from your hand, soul, or drop. Until end of turn, do all the effects. That being said, the way they word it does leave it open if they want to print a Crimson Moon card that does not count as Crimson Moonlight, thus upping the number of copies you can run. Then that becomes relevant here, because now you can, on your first swing, opt to bind a Crimson Moon card to gain the crit. Or potentially just go for double OTK, but at that point, you could just frame it the same way as I previously said, but clearly it's so that you can have this card have more oomph with its Phantom skill before you go for the big OTK. And I understand wanting to leave that door open. It gives this deck a clear area where it can become more powerful and scale as more support comes out and more powerful stuff gets released to keep it on a similar level. But at least in the Mythisch, it's like a super confusing card, and I don't know if that's necessarily worth it, especially since unless you're printing a one of Crimson Moon card that can only be run at 1 copy, like, I would think most of the time you just want to save it for double OTK, and in which case you could just frame it that way. So a small little design note, like, I can see the intention behind it, but definitely hinders its readability, especially when you're first trying to parse what this card can do. But what else does this deck get? Well, we've got the Gamma Ray Dragon, which is not a very interesting card, admittedly. It's just your stock Counterblast 1 restander, because we have to make everything multi-attack. So definitely not a very interesting card, but it's a good card. It's undoubtedly good. Gains a bunch of power, is a restander, and for whatever reason, it just draws a card. Like, Counterblast 1 to draw one is already great. Yeah, it needs to be on grade 3. A lot of these are now doing it a turn sooner, but now it's just Counterblast 1, draw 1, restand. You don't even need to check your opponent's Vanguard grade to restand, which is also quite powerful. So just faster, more aggressive, doesn't care about your opponent's Vanguard grade. It's a lot of the same things we're seeing. So strong card. I would not say it's a very interesting card. Also feels weird that it can just randomly draw a card on top of restanding all for the same Counterblast. The other triple rare, all 3 triple rares are dedicated to this deck, though this one is technically a Phantom generic card, not specifically an Alphard card. And every nation gets this card, and it's funny enough, it's a retrain of the original Cyclers from DBT 10. This one was originally the Brandt Gate one, which makes me wonder if Alphard, non-Phantom, is a Brandt Gate card. I hope we do see that at some point in the future, because that's a ripe area to explore with the Phantoms that don't already have a veritable form, or an original form to it is. What was their original form? Do we get the ride line? But these obviously just read good, just another Cycler, but this time to search for your Crimson Moon cards. Obviously want to find them, especially with this deck where you want to find 4 by your 4th turn with your Personal Ride to go for the OTK. And then from there, if you pass the point of discarding, it still does something. When you guard from it, just lets you draw a card. It's pretty much a Gun Cycler at that point. So cool stuff. For Phantom decks, like, obviously you want to find your Crimson Moon, so these are going to be good, and it's nice that it draws you a card after the fact. But it does feel a bit weird that there's no on-board effect. But I think that's just from years of strictly guard effects never being all that relevant. And also, if you play a card on board, you ideally want it to do something. And more of that's just something like Vanguard players just need to get over. But it's also a hard one to get over, because like if you're playing a card, you want it to do something. You don't want it to just be stats. So in this case, like, it's not going to be that. It's pretty much you get it from hand. You either discard it for Ride deck, since it has to be specifically Ride deck, or use it to guard and draw a card, which I do think is good enough for this card, even though it definitely from a standpoint of, wait, it really does nothing on board. Like, even just a simple gains +5k when it attacks probably would alleviate that feeling. But yeah, just still good card. I will say, rather narrow, though, in what it does. We'll see how that actually feels in play. Then we move to the double rares. We actually have 2 additional support cards. I believe it's 2, might only be 1. But this first one is the Recurrence Dragon. And this one's I think this is a cool card. In terms of just what it does, it's a Combine Rusher that gains power when you do call it and generates you soul. So it does a bit more than a Combine Rusher. It's a Combine Rusher, then when you use it, gains power and builds your soul, which makes sense because Alphard uses soul for its first effect. And then from there, it's just a 10k shield that can also intercept. Like, that's great. And that even works from hand, so this isn't a dead card in deck. That feels really great for a grade 3. And the reason I say this is interesting, because of course everything's getting a Combine Rusher nowadays. Where it does it is what it does in addition to being a Combine Rusher, and that I like that its power gain is the same as Alphard plus UK for each card in your damage zone. That feels like the more you damage it, the stronger it gets, the higher the output. I like that dynamic, even though I do think it's also part of the reason this deck probably won't exist past the fun sphere, because your opponent can directly control the power gain of this deck. But I like that they're exploring stuff like that. That to me is exciting and interesting. It doesn't necessarily need to be amazing. But yeah, past that specific nuance, I don't know why it should be able to revive itself from drop. I don't know. That's the other thing. Like, what's the tie? Like, it feels like a Stoicheia effect or like a Rezael effect. I could go on a whole thing about design-wise with these sort of things, but what I'll say is it feels like they're giving cards the ability to do stuff that doesn't necessarily make thematic sense overall, just because it's a stock good effect. And I will say about the drop, if everything can bring stuff back from drop, no problem. And it's also like, well, then what's the value in actually retiring their stuff? Because they can just bring it back. Granted, this one's not too bad. It's Energy Blast 3, so it does cost energy. But at the same time, you generate 3 energy. So, you know, maybe it's a moot point. I don't know. But yeah, I think that summarizes my thoughts. Power gain feels on point. Don't know why this card makes sense to bring itself back from drop, but obviously it is a good card. It reminds me of the Beslutin for Youthberg, where I feel like that one makes sense. Like the Fallen Knight rising back up, like I can see that one making sense. That elf just keeps coming back. But the reason I bring that card up is because this card reminds me of that, where it's something that is big shield, like 10k shield, so you intercept it away, and then you bring it back next turn, and it's just a very good, consistent card for stats that can recur itself. Then we have, is this one also a, nope, that's a Dragon card. So yes, that was it for the support cards for Alphard from the double rares. If we go past that, I'm not going to cover, let's just cover the ride line, because I'm not convinced that the non-high rarity stuff will be run. Maybe it'll surprise me since they are phantoms, but I did also cover it in a video previously, so yeah, doing this. That was more for me to convince myself. You can ignore that. The ride line. I like the grade 2. I don't think it's necessarily a super powerful card, but it does, putting the top card of your deck into your damage zone is cool because it feeds directly into what Alphard wants to do and helps enable its 0 more damage on the first grade 3 turn, which with its lacking output, you definitely need that. That being said, you can always damage deny it, but I don't know if you really need to damage deny it. And then of course you get to add a card from your damage zone back to your hand, which is also neat. Like it's a delayed plus. That being said, this does really feel like more it should be in Keter Sanctuary with the Angels because of Angel Feather of Old, manipulate the damage zone, and this isn't one of them. So it feels a bit weird to just say, oh yeah, like the self-damage, I'm like, okay, that makes sense. That doesn't feel that crazy for Dragon Empire to gain more power. But the add one to hand feels a bit off. Like, I almost wish they would have explored something like, all right, self-damage itself and gain a benefit, like a big benefit. Maybe you could justify Alphard being a little weaker because the grade 2 does something really strong by self-damaging and pushing itself up. Or maybe just have the self-damage be optional if you absolutely need it. I don't know. Maybe there's something to do there, but this is, I feel like, the safe way to do it. And the reason I say this is probably a little on the weaker side is because it's a delayed plus, meaning you don't see it until the opponent's turn. But it is also neat utility. I do think it's generally neat utility, and I'd love to see more exploration with manipulating the damage zone. Really haven't seen that with standard. Then we have, where is the grade 1? It's this guy, the Gerbitor. And when wrote upon, top 7 for one Phantom or Crimson Moon card and put it into your hand. Just simple consistency. If you don't real Soul Charge 2, I mean, free use of your Vanguard's effect, but you're really just wanting to find a card. So that solid consistency effect. No complaints there. And this is another one where I was feeling like design-wise, like everything's getting a top search. Gathering Phantom units feels a bit weird. Finding the Crimson Moon card, that I feel like it's an appropriate use of like a top search for any nation for specific like order cards. Maybe that's just because nothing has had a really big tie to it, but you know, when they represent something so thematic, it makes sense. You want to find it more consistently. But yeah, for a Phantom unit, I guess to hand, it's like, all right, you're just more consistently finding your pieces. That's not too bad. Design-wise, calling to board just feels like a header effect. But those are kind of like design thoughts on it as well. So that is Alphard. As I keep saying, I expect it to exist more in the fun sphere just because it's got a clear choke point that could easily end tournament runs if your opponent just finds Overture or Elementary Sanctitude. But it seems really, really fun. And I love the theme around damage, scaling your power. And yeah, I'll probably comment a bit more about some of the design stuff, but when everything's doing it, I can't hold it strictly against Alphard Phantom. Definitely got some good effects, even if there's a lot of homogeneity. So I'm excited to play this deck and curious to see how it will compare to my expectations. Like, will it do a bit better than I'm expecting? About the same? We'll see. But continuing on with Dragon Empire, we'll move over to the double rares where we've got 2 cards for decks I already played. One of them being this Drag Ritter Q-Tub, which is for Alkalibra, and this card is amazing. It got a promo card end of last year, I believe, and that one I was like, oh my gosh, this is just that one Jeweled card, Varpula, but for Alkalibra. And then I realized it had a crap ton of restrictions on it, so it's actually very narrow in application. It's still a good card, but not as good as I thought when I first read it, and definitely not as good as Varpula. But this card, this feels like it's more comparable to Varpula, because it does a lot for this deck. For one, when I first read this, I thought, oh, okay, so it's just a restanding booster. That's nice, and can extra shield value, because this deck doesn't plus an insane amount, so a card that can send itself, can intercept with extra shield feels nice for this deck. Just instead of having to draw a ton of cards, you use your board to help you defend. That, to me, is interesting. It feels good, and it feels in line with what this deck's already doing. It pairs well with its order to be able to bring itself back. Great stuff there. Interesting stuff. But as I kept reading this card, I noticed a few things about it. For one, you know, as I read this now, it specifically says back row, and now I want to check if the translations I was using, I swear, did not say back row, so it is a back row booster, so never mind. I'm finding out live that this card works exactly how I originally thought, and then somehow thought it worked differently. So let's see here, about to see. It's probably going to be funny realization. Nope, that's the wrong one. Where's Paraloctic Clash? We're figuring this out live. Where was my confusion? Because I thought this card was not that this isn't good, but I thought it was saying like this could be a restander in the front row on your first grade 3 turn. And yep, okay, I see the issue now. The translation posted on the wiki does not say back row, which is why I was confused, even though you can clearly see on the Japanese scan, there's more before from a rear server. So I read it first originally. Okay, scrap that. So this is still an exciting card, but I literally thought that this was could work in the front row and therefore was a restander when your opponent's not on grade 3. That is indeed not the case. This is very much a just back row booster, extra shield value, which by the way, I want to say is still good. Don't want to downplay that. I think this is a worthwhile support card, just not as crazy as I had originally thought. But hey, more power to your front row to really close it off. Once you do get into your combos, even before that, like you can just use it as extra shield guard from board, as I already explained. So good stuff. That was a roller coaster, I'm not gonna lie. Next card, actually before we go on, this is also, I feel like, a very interesting design. Like, yeah, it's a back row booster, but it does more than that and has some other nuances in what it does. So I feel like this is a pretty well designed card overall. And feels in theme with the deck as well, with like restanding and then being a restanding booster. It doesn't just do that for no reason. But anyway, let's move on to the new Nirvana support card. And this card, I've just picked up Nirvana, so I have questions if this will make the cut, and that's just because I don't have enough experience with Nirvana to really have built up that capability to judge these sorts of things, and the existing stuff feels really good for the deck. So with this card, let's see, discard for hand during your turn, just generic trigger. I'm having to reread this one. That's ride deck or with your Nirvana, and please search your deck for up to one crossover, just or just reveal it, put your hand, and shuffle your deck. So just a good pinpoint search, makes sense. And then you can Soul Blast 2, retire it 2, call Prayer Dragon for drop, tag it out for a Prayer Dragon since Blaze Main name isn't very useful overall. So Blaze Mains, of course, are in a weird spot where it's not part of your main combo, but a lot of times does support the main combo in some way. This card is not any different in that regard. I know the one that is being run feels really good because you can top 7, and the benefit to that one is that you can also grab a Nirvana, and I believe it's also Talisman. Let's search up the Blaze Maidens to find the one I'm looking for to refresh myself. Blaze Maiden. Let's see. Oh god, gonna have to scroll, aren't I? Oh yeah, we're scrolling. What have I done? Okay, that's actually not too bad. It is this, not Esser. It's here, Alpru. Energy Blast 3, top 7 for 1 Nirvana, or up to 1 Talisman from them, put your hand shuffle deck. So wider search pool because you can grab your Persona Ride or any Talisman, including your Trick Stars and any Varina form. Well, the other one, grab Varina forms. And the boost is a nice thing. Versus this one where you get to pinpoint search any Nirvana, which is nice. But we also have that capability with the Ars Varina, though you then have to use one of the other cards to be able to loop those Nirvana forms, not Nirvana, the Varina forms back to hand. So this kind of bypasses the loop of having to do that. But also at the same time, once you run out of copies in your deck, you can't recur them back either. So some give and some take there. And also the second effect, this deck does use Soul Blast rather efficiently, so I don't know how useful that effect is to bring back a Prayer Dragon, but it's also not, I mean, I could see it. Even just having this sit on board as an AK booster, when discard hand during your turn. Well, I guess you're never calling it down. You're mostly just wanting to discard anyway, so I guess if you need it, it's there, but you're not really aiming for it. So I guess it's mostly for that first effect to pinpoint search. Yeah, I really don't know. I think I'm going to test it because I can see this being useful at maybe some copies. Like at the beginning of the game, it's a bit easier because you could just pinpoint search it versus having to make sure you have a way to loop it back as well. Just kind of cuts off all the stuff, even though in the later game, I expect just the Ars Varina with the other cards. There's the, oh gosh, I should know this card because it's running buff Zorga as well. The joint card between the two of them that's really good. Let's look it up. Where's the name? Know it immediately when I see it. It is nope, not you. Where are you? Not you. Where is it? No. Here we go. The Cindy. Yeah, Cindy. Cindy's good. And then there's the one Prayer Dragon that can also loop it back for Energy Blast 3. Yeah, I think it's just a matter of testing it out more. Where I'm really curious to see this one is especially with the new Nirvana coming out over the summer, because we now have that new Varina form, the grade 2, that when you cross overdress it can counter blast 1 to draw 1, and notably you don't need to have the Nirvana out. You can be on grade 2 to do that. So being able to go discard this for ride deck, search out either that Nirvana, I keep saying Nirvana, either that Varina or the Trickstar and Suendi, which you'd already have one anyway, but you search out that Nirvana, crossover dress on Trickstar and Suendi to counterblast 1 draw a card, that seems pretty good. So even if it doesn't make sense right this very moment, because the Alpru may still be better with its higher flexibility, and you've got plenty of other ways to find stuff and loop stuff back that scales better into the late game, I could definitely see this seeing more value once we get the new Nirvana and Varina stuff coming out over the summer. And I think that is about it for Dragon Empire. Yeah, that was all the cards. So let's move right along to Dark States. Dark States, we don't actually have a new Phantom card that comes out next set. But we do have is some support for plenty of other decks. So let's just start with the Crowwind stuff. And we got a grade 3 here, the All-Crushing Revolution Colossus. And one of the biggest issues, funny enough, I found the Crowwind deck was I had slots I need to fill, which is very weird to have happen. Because normally I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm having to figure out what this better. But no, I'm just like, what card do I actually want to fill up the final slots of this deck? Because I just don't have enough cards I want to run. And this card solves that issue. Like, obviously, just give it a new support card. And this one feels really good as well. So obviously following that trend of just saying a grade 2 card, you can call down Crown Boss 1, draw a card, follows that generically good. But it's really the other effects that feel good. Because for one, you can use that even on grade 2. Not grade 2, in the later game, it's a grade 2, which is really great. We've got grade 3s covered for the deck. So you really want to pair with the grade 2 so you can bind the grade 2, the grade 3, call out the grade 4 plus a grade 1. And grade 2, that's what is missing perfect. Another nice thing is that when it is part of that bind, you can reduce the cost of one of the units you called. If you have a gear, choose one of your rear guards, reduce cost by counter 1. So the grade 4, you can reduce its restand effect by counterblast 1, and all of a sudden, there's your counterblast to play the draw, because counterblast is actually quite tight in this deck between your Vanguard and the Colossus, the grade 4. And so counterblast 1 to draw 1 is a bit of a tall ask, but if you're reducing it, not a problem with this card. Like, yeah, just not a problem whatsoever. So that's good. And then on top of that, that guard effect I think is really cool. It reads a bit more situational, seeing as uses energy. The deck quite effectively uses energy, but of course can probably, with a strong effect like this, change stuff up to give it a bit more leeway. Or the Soul Blast 1 card, the same name as your Vanguard. It's one less card to bind, but the point is that this is a card, another way to loop back your grade 4. And now, granted, you need it in hand, and you cannot tech this out to be able to guard with it, so I still think the Gear Parrot is still going to need to be in the deck for this. But really how I see this is, it's just a great emergency big shield, so it can be a 25k shield. So just, if you have it in hand, or maybe like you just need a big thing to guard with, this can be it. Just kind of have the resources, maybe sitting there to be able to do that, just in case. And that's really cool. And I'm really here to see how much this effect comes up, because I expect to be impactful. I mean, a 25k shield is massive. And even just returning, because you put one Dark State Frame Bind Zone, put it on the bottom of your deck, which is also nice because you don't have to use the effect. You can always just use it to, if need be, to get the Colossus back. Though I think most of the time, at least how I prefer to play it, I don't like to play it that risky. So I would need to see this in hand to not want to just go for the Gear Parrot to ensure it. But that aside, that's a nice flexibility to have. But just being able to have this like really big shield in hand is super exciting. Like, it's really cool. Not that this deck really struggled with shield, like it pluses a lot, or really tags out units to build up quite a sizable hand. So there's just a massive shield on top of it. Just means, hey, more freedom to be able to build stuff up on board. So I find this card to be very interesting. It works with the deck in very interesting ways that you want it to do. Like, while the first effect is just a very basic effect, good effect, the rest of it is just like, okay, this clearly builds on the game plan. It's interesting. I really love that Guardian effect overall. Like, just well designed. I think this is going to be a very welcome support card for the deck. I'm going to figure out how I can slot 4 of these in there. That's the only support card. I mean, there might be some other versions or lower, but the only support card I care about for Crowwind. So let's move on to the Jeweled support card. And this is probably I shouldn't say the most boring, but it definitely feels like one of the most boring cards to cover, because this is pretty much just, Varpala for Jeweled again, and it's another restander because Jeweled doesn't have enough restanders as is. But yeah, the final effect is pretty much Varpala just doesn't need a grade 4 in hand. So last one over through grade 3 or grade Jeweled, put it to soul, draw a card. If you did not choose a rear guard, stand this battle phase, choose one of your front row rear guards and stand it. Pretty straightforward stuff. I think Varpala can hit back row as well, restand. So technically Varpala is still better than this, but what is it? Sorry, choose one of your rear guards, and if your rear guard did not stand by a card's ability this turn, stand it. Yeah, it can choose back row. But I think that's minute. Like, really, just make sure you can get a double restand in the front row for 5 attacks is what you care about. And then on top of that effect, it can just generate you 3 energy, but you can only use it on your Demonic Stone Dragon, Demonic Jewel Dragon cards. So your grade 2s and your grade 3s. So cool extra draw off of the, not Lavenjader, the, oh god, it was the second Rockager clone that can stay on the first turn, whose name's escaping me. But also you can use it for, let's do Stone Dragon. Let's find it. I had the card. It's not Lavenjader. That's the grade 3 Rockager clone. Here it is. The Lithosarger. So Lithosarger to get an extra draw, or you can use it on the, I should have Stone Dragon somewhere. Oh, it's Demonic Jewel Dragon. Type in Stone Dragon. Let's find the one. Jewel Dragon. It is the... Come on, where are you? I know you're here. Oh, this guy, the Geodrawl. And also Geodrawl to be able to call a card. Yeah. Obviously, it's good. Extra energy to do stuff with. And I will admit, while this card is incredibly boring, it's just another reason for Jeweled. I am happy for it because I want to play Magnus without Ignis, even though Ignis has just been better. But it's part of the reason it felt like Ignis was just better because it had access to Varpala. And with the Magnus build, it felt like I had to go specifically for some combination of like Lithosarger, Lavenjader for the double restand. Like, that's just going to be objectively better. And I wasn't able to use Geodrawal to be able to do the Twin Drive. And the Twin Drive was the cool thing. Like, give a Rearguard Twin Drive. Something different. But now with this one, I feel a lot more confident about going the route of Geodrawal with a Twin Drive because now I can restand it with this guy. So, unfortunately, it feels like that grade 4 Jeweled Ignis support was just too good. And the Magnus support was always just living in its shadow. And this finally gives it a chance to be able to come out from underneath the shadow and not just run the grade 4, even though there's a good chance the grade 4 stuff is still just better. I mean, it can run this card. That is the thing. So, yeah. We'll see what happens. Even if the grade 4 is better, I'm probably just going to play straight Magnus because I love the drive checking rear guards. And it's just different. And that's, I think, what I'm mostly looking forward to Introduce, is just to be able to play something different for once. But yeah, those are my thoughts card. Very boring card, very good card. I think it's the best way to put it. And then we can get to the Jewel Nation stuff with new Liel support. So at this point, I've only played Odium. I did pick up the Dracona stuff. So still have to play that one, but I'm only going to be talking about Liel Odium because that's what I know. And with Odium, this is an amazing support card. Mostly that ability to, after you use your Divine skill, to be able to restand stuff feels so impactful because this has always been a 3-attack deck. Is it all that interesting? Absolutely not. Again, just give stuff restand, and it's just restands. It doesn't necessarily do anything. Like, it doesn't even call from a regress gauge, which I think would be way more thematic than just a straight up restand. But alas, it is definitely good. And this card also, like, thematically is interesting because it's a Dual Nation card and what it's representative of with Odium and the soul of Amorta being inside Odium, if it's anything like the anime with the Ikaris. But in terms of what it actually does, like, it's just the Amorta and Odium, but it gets some extra setup thanks to its ability for, was it a top 5 to top 5 to set up a bound card or a regress gauge, or essentially swap one out. It's good. It just makes the deck more consistent, gives the deck extra oomph once you use your Divine skill. Yeah, good card. I don't think it's particularly interesting outside of it supporting both of them, but what it physically does on the card, yeah, kind of boring. Gonna be honest there. I'm really thinking, like, man, it would be so much more interesting. The skill it would get is instead, like, call a card from your regress gauge or your bind zone. That'd be cool. Because at that point, you've already built up so much, you're probably fine calling stuff out. Though I can't say for Amorta. For Odium, regress gauge, that'd be perfectly fine. But anyhow, I'm happy to see them exploring more Dual Nation cards. I think while this one's definitely impactful, I think the more impactful card, I shouldn't say more impactful card, but really that one is impactful, but one feels more prolific in terms of its impactfulness, probably because it's effective throughout a majority of stages of the game versus grade 4 onwards, is this dual nation here, the Sky, Engraving, Decree, Urut, and Luel. So this card does a bunch of stuff. First off, the first effect is insane. The fact that when you put it as in Bind Zone as a regress gauge, if you haven't used its effect yet this turn, you just get a top 5 search for a grade 3 card. This is also highly impactful. Again, speaking specifically for Odium, because that's what I know, you've got your Distorted Banes, you've got your Dragon, that's name's escaping me. A lot of these names are escaping me right now. But the grade 3 that originally came out with Odium when it was released, that can call itself from the regress gauge. That's a good target. And then, of course, you can get Persona Ride. And I know Liel Amorta also has some good stuff as well. Amorta for PGs, Gabwelius as well. Not to mention finding the new Liel to set that up. Yeah, ton of good stuff, even though it doesn't have specifically an order. So that's a really good effect because that's just free. That's a free +1 if you hit that. And then continuing from that, just again, a simple counterblast 1 to draw 1. Nothing too crazy there. Just good effect. That's like the new sweetener effect. Just we want to do something good to give a little oomph. Okay, call 1, counterblast 1, draw 1. Okay. And then when it attacks, just gaining extra power, making it a big beater. And I do like the little effect to choose 1 9/7 from your drop and put it on the bottom deck into your soul. That can be highly relevant for resource generation or to prevent deck out. So that's a nice little touch. So this card, again, Workhorse. I think I was missing that term for it. This just feels like another Workhorse card. It just does good stuff the deck likes. It's not trying to do necessarily anything interesting, but this does a lot and a lot of good stuff, and that first effect is just insane. So in terms of like mechanical depth, not an interesting card, but what it provides to the deck feels meaningful and impactful and stuff at least Odium wants. So in that regard, it's an interesting card. So yep, Liel stuff out of the way, and finally we've got this card here, but I don't think it will be run. It's a cool card. Extra 10k shield can call itself out when discarded from hand during your turn. So that feels like ride deck, be able to call it out. Cool stuff. Kind of, it's like a Soul Blast version of the Billigiacro from last set that just costs a Soul Blast. And I think that's pretty cool. And it says call this card to back row. It doesn't mean you can't move it forward as well for some early aggression. So in that regard, it seems interesting for some extra early aggression options. But again, the deck list is so, I should say again, the deck list is so tight. I don't think this will make the cut, even though it is interesting in a niche manner. Finally, from Dark States, we got a new Greedon support card, Desire Devil Shuchaku. The names are so funny. This thing's so funny looking. So this has 2 effects and also is another card that feels rather impactful. So good support cards overall. It's a restanding booster, which of course is relevant in Greedon, not to be a restanding booster, but to be able to boost something and then have it stand to be able to put Soul Greedon's effect and not have to lose out on an attack. That is meaningful and something that Greedon has not had, at least not this literally. And it feels appropriate for the deck overall since it plays with the position of cards, at least in my opinion. We've had other ways to play around it with like call stuff, but really Mask has not been playing this, and I'm viewing this from the lens of Mask because that's what seems to be the best version of Greedon right now. And the other effect is another cool one that just gives a unit power, that's impactful, and lets you return to hand. I mean, you're building up excess soul, add it back to hand. You can just kind of keep looping it, and just more ways to build up a hand to guard stuff. So this card, rather simple in what it does, and it's impactful and plays well off of what Greedon does. So it feels like a well-designed card to me, and just a nice little bump to make it a little better. I will say for Greedon overall, I'm kind of wanting to move away from mass stuff. Of course, it'd be so nice if we just had an improved Dragon Tree Searcher. I feel like that's one thing that really needs above something like this to make the mass version better. But I also really wish we could just get a retrained version to move away from the mass stuff and just kind of not fully reinvent what Greedon does, but, you know, take what feels Greedon and kind of reinvent it, shine a new light on it, give it some new stuff. I think that's really what I'd like to see. But if we're not getting that, just a solid support card, I'll take it. So that is Dark States. I don't think there's anything real interesting from the lower rarity. Yeah, nah. So we'll move right along to Brandt Gate, and we get another Phantom deck in Zorga Phantom. And I'm a big Zorga fan, like Brandt Gate, so I was very excited to see this one. So this deck appears to be a combo-leaning deck built around a couple things. We got a set order and a token unit called the Demonic Beast Alchemix Body Ubermensch. We also have rear guards with the race Genome Gel. Lost pieces here, so that's why I say it's a combo deck. And basically the premise is that Zorga, through a process called Alchemix, appropriately named since OG had Alchemagic, this is Alchemix since Mad Scientist Zorga, not Witch Doctor Sorcerer Zorga. But basically Alchemix combine your Genome Gels with your Ubermensch to get an extra attack with power and, because I believe token, yeah, because that token power, with extra power and an opportunity to trigger effects on the Genome Gels. That's pretty cool. And if that wasn't enough already, like obviously that's going to be the main combo to just kind of generate advantage and extra aggression with the token. But this also seems to have some good kind of control leaning aspects. And by control, I mean just being able to play well into the late game with his Phantom skill, which is simply bind a Crimson Moon. And for each Crimson Moon card in your bind zone, you get to call a Genome Gel from your drop to rearguard circle. So just great recovery overall. And that feels like a nice nod to the OG Zorga that can revive stuff. So I also like that, even though revival from drop isn't something you typically see from Brandt Gate. So all in all, like, one, this card is just solid. It's going to be our main enabler to do stuff, which makes sense. And the bring back a bunch of stuff just, to me, says, all right, I'm going to be set on building a board well into the late game. So let's kind of go over some of these pieces here. Let's skip straight to, oh, the order and the token are not loading. Let me go back because I feel like that's such a crucial thing to go over here. Where is it? It is almost there. There we go. So our research, oh, I'm gonna have to scroll all the way back down. We're going to search it. So the research, we'll see how we get it, but I'll try around. We get it from the grade 1 just by playing it, which is awesome. And it's a simple effect that you just rest it to get your Ubermensch token. So you get 1 per turn. So what does this Ubermensch token do? Ubermensch. Yeah, here we go. And this is just a simple token that 1 5k for each grade of your Vanguard. So it starts up underpowered, but still makes good numbers as like a booster, and then scales really great. Like by the time it gets grade 3, it's a 15k body. That's strong. And then from there, the cool thing is with the Alchemix, so Zorga's not the one who actually restands it. It's its own effect once the Alchemix it stands, and you can use it as a booster and then just move to the front row to attack. Good stuff there. And then, so you can't stack these on board. It does retire stuff at the end of turn, so you're just pretty much using the lab to call out 1 every single turn. Pretty straightforward stuff. So that's the core of all of this. And then we can kind of get to what it does. So as I said, grade 1 just gets you your lab. Ranker chain looking cool. The grade 2, which looks so cool as a space dragon. And this card's insane. For Energy Blast 3, you get to check the top 7, choose 2 cards from among them, and you get to put 1 to hand, discard the other one. Or you have the option to add 1 to hand and then discard a Crimson Moon from your deck. So just wow. This is so much. Like, just set up cards in your drop, and like you can guarantee a Crimson Moon with this one, which makes sense. The Ride-Lands typically have been trying to guarantee a Crimson Moon. And top 7 for any non-Sentinel card to put into your hand. Like, wow, for a Ride-Line card, that's really, really good. So yeah, they just do generic good stuff, what you would expect from a ride line to help it set up. I don't think it's necessarily anything interesting, but I mean, the rank train just needs to give you the order. The order does the interesting thing anyway. And this one is just a custom card. Nothing really too interesting to say about that. Moving on to the dedicated support though, we of course got the Margaret. And, you know, I was thinking with Alpha, I said, I wonder if it's originally going to be Brandt Gate. And what supports this theory is the fact that Margaret is a Stoicheia card, and Zorga was originally Stoicheia. So I wonder if it's fine. We're going to keep track of it. Same thing as the habitable zone we covered, same exact effect. Nothing new to say there. And I'm actually going to skip around. Let's go over some of these genome gels first, because those are the other key pieces. So we've got Cranial Ringing. This is just a good card. Can also bring itself back from drop for free, by the way. And then when Alchemist just gains critical, just kind of giving some more power. Nothing too worse here, but again, just bringing itself back for free is a really good effect. And some extra pressure, of course, is great. What did it say? Is it... Notably does not check your Vanguard's grade, which I don't think Zorga does either, except for power. No, it's just 3 or more Crimson Moons. Yeah, so full power right away. We've got the Running Dog, Shadow Eater Running Dog, which makes me think of Shadow Cloak. Love that card. And this one lets us actually kind of tutor some of our genome gels, so we don't necessarily need to be running them at full copies, because one place to run, you can just discard it. Feels appropriate since you're bringing them back anyway. Almost feels like the drop zone is our test tubes here. And when Alchemix, draw a card, you can counterblast one, draw a card. Phenomenal. Draw power. This is the kind of combos that you want, and really leans more into like the sustainability of this deck. The fact that this can just draw 2 for a counterblast. The only other counterblast we've seen so far is with the Zorga and I guess the Margaret if you're not using energy. And then we've got our this little rat thing here, Bite Engraver. So another drop recaller, though it costs some energy and just gives it 10k. This is probably the least interesting one, but notably with Zorga, I believe it's different name genome gels. Alchemix all your genome gels. Choose Ubermesh token Regulator. Alchemix all your genome gel chosen by this effect. Hold on. Choose any number of your genome gels a different name. So yeah, they have to be different names if you chose 2 or more. So okay. Yeah, 2 or more. Okay, so yeah. Don't know if you're necessarily going to be doing that one, but definitely these 2 seem pretty good. And those are the genome gels we got this time. Maybe there's something I'm missing where you want to do more. Let me double check that. Rear guards, tumor, and Aqua's effect. By those one more continues. See, I think you just need to do the 2 more, right? Choose any number of your genome gel rear guards with different card names. If you chose 2 or more, choose your Ubermesh token, Riggers, or Alchemist, all the genomes chosen by effect. So I guess the reason to do is you just want the extra 10k. We'll see if it's actually wanted, because deck space is going to be tight, because that's not the only card type we have. If we go to the other triple rare here, we've got our Regrain Researchers, which follow a common trend, because this one, Bone Flesh Ripper, has some unique effects, but all of them will have the effect in hand that if you don't already have one in your order zone, you can put it to order zone to draw a card. And you haven't put any of the other ones from hand in there. So that's already really interesting. Like, all right, we're building our board with these genome gels and our Ubermensch token. Well, what is the other support cards going to do? Throw himself to order zone to be able to get effects. That's cool. And in order zone, they all have some sort of effect. This one in particular lets us retire 1 or more up to 2 rear guards to draw a card. And if you retire 2 rear guards, for the cost, you countercharge 1. So way to regain resources, and also makes sense why we have some more cards that can bring themselves back. And of course, Zorga, as the game goes on, can revive more and more. And that feeds perfectly into this card, because at some point you're reviving more than you need. And then from drop, this is also a way to get an extra booster, just to add more power. That's just feels like a sweetener effect. First 2, what I think is most interesting. I really love this idea of they're in the lab and they do stuff while in the lab. That to me is cool. Next up, we have Hendrina. Should recognize this card. Same first effect, but then its other effect is that, so in order zone, let's go over that one, is that, what is it? By those 2 more Crimson Moons, you can discard to give your Vanguard Triple Drive. So it doesn't come live until your second grade 3 turn, but still a cool effect. Just give your Vanguard Triple Drive, because why not? Reminds me of the order that gave Zorga an extra drive from set 4. That's not all it does. While the Bone Flesh Ripper, like, also you want to run multiple copies because you want one to drop to call back as a booster, this one acts as a booster for your Vanguard, gains extra power, and lets you further filter your deck. Though it's only a top 3, so I don't know how useful that will actually be, but I don't think there's anything else that really is useful. So, you know, running a few copies and then having a booster thin deck if need be, and be able to your Vanguard Triple Drive, not too bad. But I can also see this one possibly being a skip, because I don't know if it does anything like too crazy. Like, it seems good, but it comes out later. Not the most flexible, and it looks like deck space is going to be a little tight, but I'll get to that. Because like top 3, choose a card from it, so you have to discard a card. Yeah. And finally, I mean, we got one more. I don't think this one will really be run all that much. Order zone, you can bind it to choose up to the same number of your units as the number of Crimson Moon cards in your bind zone, give them 5k. It's some extra power gain, I don't know. So yeah, a lot of pieces here, a lot of interesting stuff going on, and I'm really curious to see how this deck will come together because it's very piece reliant. Yeah, and with the first wave, yeah, I could see Hendrina being run. I mean, especially if you're not running this guy. But as we get more, it's going to be very interesting to see how we adjust this deck, since I'm already curious about the individual ratios. Because, yeah, there's just a lot going on here between your genome gels and your scientists. But it's going to be fun to figure out. And that was the appeal of the original Zorga to me. How do we balance units plus orders? And this does exactly that, which I absolutely love. Other than that... yeah, we've got a, what is this card? Impaldio support card. So this is pretty much just a way to get an extra body on board, but instead of being called from drop, like all the other Combine Rusher clones that we've been getting, this card brings it out from the gauge zone, which is, I think, is neat. It's an interesting spin on the card. And then from there, it's just a big attacker. So just a nice way to fill up a board if you're struggling to do so. I don't know how relevant this card's actually going to be an Impalio. I'm going to be honest, because it's not like Impalio has trouble building a board to begin with. And it's got some very valuable cards to throw in the front row. So maybe I see this more as a nice option to have if you're against very retire heavy decks or board removal heavy decks and just need a little extra way to be able to rebuild a board that's a +1. But otherwise, I don't know. I just don't see this. If it's a grade 1, I could definitely see it, but as a grade 2, I don't know about this one. All right, continue on with Keter Sanctuary. Whew. 2 nations left in the collab. We'll get there. Starting to feel the strain of voice, not gonna lie, but let's power through it. We've got Blagmire Phantom. 0 Salvation Blagmire Phantom. This card looks so cool. And it was the first Phantom unit that we saw in the show, and I believe they didn't reveal it beforehand. They showed Alphard, Barracrea, and Zorga. So this was a big surprise. Like, oh my gosh, Blagmire Phantom. And this seems to be just the classic Vanguard mid-range deck. And the big theme for this one, of course, is seeing how you can play off of the bind zone, just like the Blagmire did, but in a bit of a different way. And it does that pretty effectively for a Keter deck, just powering up your board and being able to call allies from it as well, in the form of getting an extra attack, which feels very appropriate. And I love the theme here. Binding from drop to face up feels like Salvation, like Fallen Comrades just ascending to Salvation, which is the bind zone. That feels so good. And I also love how it kind of parallels Resile in a sense by having his Phantom skill at full power, letting you also heal 1. That's really cool. I love a lot of the little design choices with this deck overall. And also being able to just kind of call a card from drop. Noticing, all the Combine Rusher stuff, it's like, well, that feels more like a Stoicheia thing. But considering that this Blagmire is an angel and the theme is like Salvation, that makes sense. Miracle brings stuff back from the dead. Like, that feels thematic. So really like that. The first effect, though, I will say, like, it's a lot to read. And it's just to get various increments of 5k to your front row, but clear it's just because they wanted to put a cap on it. They didn't just want to scale stuff. They learned their lesson from the crest stuff, so I can't complain if that doesn't look the nicest on a card. But yeah, those are the matters about Blagmire, and being just kind of a classic mid-range deck, it's just got a bunch of cards that support that's nothing too profound. So we'll just kind of go through the cards. We'll start with the ride line here. One of the Cavity Maligia? Yeah, Maligia just looks unsettling, not gonna lie. But we've got the Hollow Raptor. It's so weird. Like, it's so cool seeing stuff, like more demonic stuff turn space stuff and maybe get, like, turn evil and whatnot. But seeing these Keter cards, or Dark States cards turn Keter Sanctuary, it's a little weird, not gonna lie. But the Hollow Raptor, pretty simple. Just search your deck for Crimson Moon, put your soul, shuffle your deck. Okay, makes sense. Now the challenge is to get it out of your soul. Makes sense. Now, of course, obviously you think, oh, well, you can bind stuff. Blagmire, you don't want to bind it because you got your Phantom skill, but that's besides the point. Obviously, you want to bind with the Phantom skill to be able to do stuff, because what? Bind 2 or more? Yeah, because 2 or more. For a total of 4. Oh, cool note about that one. I don't know why you necessarily want to do that, but you could technically just bind a straight 4 to get the entire effect right away. I think that's pretty neat. Though, if you're not Persona right, you don't get the critical. But I would expect 2 and 2 to be most cases what you end up doing there. But I don't know, maybe if you only find one, you've got a safeguard. But anyhow, grade 1, put to soul, you just have to find a way to get it out of your soul. Blackmire doesn't do it itself, so let's look to the Vacant Fane, and would you look at that Soul Blast, easy way to get it out. And you just get to look at top 3, choose a card from one of them, reveal it, put it to your hand, you may discard the rest of the remaining cards if you do not shuffle your deck. Yeah, that's just good. I don't think it's anything too insane. Top 3, I mean, top 3, grab 1, that's pretty good. We've already had that in Alcalibra, and nobly this costs a Soul Blast. And it's nice to have the option to put them all into drop since you want to fuel up your drop to be able to bind stuff with your Blackmire. But also not having to. It's one of those things where sometimes we feel like as players we want choice because that's good. We want the power to choose things, but sometimes it's also good to lock stuff in. So it's one of those cards where obviously it's made better now that you have the option to shuffle back in deck. But from a design standpoint, I wonder if it should just force you to do it. But let's get into larger design stuff, what I'm going to deal with here. I also forgot, we're getting new PGs, and this one looks awesome. That aside, then we get into the sport cards. We got the Koglaflan, which immediately breaks this idea that the Gun Cycler is moving nations with whatever nation it was, because if that were the case, this would be the Dark States one, which was Lemina. But instead, nope, it's the Dragon Empire one, which is interesting to think about, because that kind of implies that there might not be any Dragon Empire shifts, which is a lie, not that we know about Calibra, but we couldn't get it there. Anywho, that just does all the same stuff as the other two we discussed, so nothing new to say there. Got this grade 1 here in the Bedoct, which has a couple cool effects like Bind Zone. I love that these are all angels to really sell this idea of salvation, but just Bind Zone to when it's placed, essentially without taking away from your Bind Zone, lets you call it as a booster to support that attack. That's obviously a good effect. When placed on rear start other than during the battle phase, you can look at top 5 choose on Blackmire up to one Crimson Moon, just like a more consistent way to find your Persona rides and your Crimson Moon, since those are the cards you need to do what Blackmire wants to do. And then at the end of battle boost, just put itself to the drop to countercharge to make sure your effects. That's just a straight workhorse card, just does a ton of stuff that you like. Booster, help find your pieces, help make sure you've got counter blast while also building your draw. Makes sense. Nothing too much to say there. That's just very straightforward card. And then we have the Zamoog. This one feels appropriate for Keter as a knight. This one, again, just does some good stuff. I don't have to refresh myself, which is why I'm having to read these again. When placed on rear guard circle, opponent's fingers grade 2 or greater, so essentially you can't play it use this effect turn 2 going first, even though choose grade 3 Blackmire. Yeah. So yeah, either going turn 2 going second or turn 3 going first. Counterblast 1, look at top 2, choose a card from among them, put hand, put the rest on the bottom deck area or into your soul. So obviously that's just a phenomenal filter effect. It's kind of like Sargon, but actually costed. So good effect there. And then when this unit attacks, if a grade 3 or greater Vanguard, it's just better than drawing. That's what I'm trying to get at, because they can also generate you resources. Again, I wonder if it should just force to soul, but that's a design question. But the other part does is that it can gain power, and once your opponent's at grade 3, you can get even more power, and you can use Energize to give it a critical, which makes sense. That's kind of what the old Zamoog did, feel thematic. And that just makes this a good supporting card, as it can help filter for cards, build up resources, and then just hit with a critical. Just fairly decent support card there. I do like this idea of a rear guard gaining a critical. We've been seeing that more and more, but I don't think it's become too prolific. So that to me is actually an interesting part of this card, but otherwise it's just kind of just straight good stuff, which, it's fine for a deck. Blackmire's mostly doing the interesting thing with some of the other cards. And is this... Yeah, this is a Blackmire support card, the Advol. Place your your hand, choose Blackmire. If your Vanguard's that or you reveal the card, look at top 5, choose the one card from among them, discard it, shuffle your deck. So just a way to build up your drop. Makes sense, Blackmire wants to do that. And then the back row, when we're placed, it's another way to restand. So basically, you don't necessarily have to rely on this guy to be able to, to be able to do this effect. Wow. Getting late here, so trying to wind it up. That was my thought. So reading these cards is actually cool, because notably this card just has call to a back row rear guard circle, not in the same column. Meanwhile, this one does need to be placed in the same column and then can restand. So what this means is it makes me think Chronojet levels of logic where like you don't need to fill up your back row because you got your upstream dragon, which can help with that. And this seems to be the exact case where you don't necessarily need to have a full back row. You can have this one, boost it, attack with a guy, attack with Blagmire, call something in the same column, stand this, and you can fill your other back row rear guard circle with this triple row Bedocked. That's pretty cool. And I'm also seeing another theme here where you got cards that are building stuff to soul. And while there isn't too many Soul Blast users, I mean, we got the Kogel fan, we got this guy as well, and we got cards that build Soul to help fuel those up, but it's also just a way to load up your drop zone. So, okay, I'm seeing the combo here. I think this is pretty cool. It's all connecting, and while I don't think individually these are necessarily the most interesting cards, I can see these coming together quite interesting in gameplay, which I think is good. So, good stuff that I'm seeing from Blagmire Phantom. It's a bit hard to gauge how good it is because we got a bunch of individually good effects. We can see how they connect. We'll just have to see how they do in practice. But thematic-wise, I see a lot of good stuff here. I think this has probably been my favorite designed deck in terms of gameplay stuff so far. But also might just be one of the more straightforward ones as well. The other deck that I played that is seeing with support is the Gigantech Vernerator. Yes, that's right, Vernerator. That supports Alden. And this one's a nice one for the Alden deck. I mean, Alden has had some pretty good support lately, outside that first support wave. But this one's I really like because the deck still has been running that set 13 card, the Almac? I think that's what it's called. That's just a big attacker that gains 15k, but that's like, stuff's getting bigger, and that one feels so underwhelming because that's all it does. And this card feels like a decent replacement for it that also fits in line with the Destined Wonder Protection because this card is a 10k shield, which is nice. So basically, when placed on rearguard or put on Guardian Circle, if you're grade 3 or grade Vanguard Alden, plus 5k power plus 10k shield. So that's where it becomes a 10k shield when it intercepts, and if it's a attacker when placed. But if it's placed by ability, it gains additional 5k for a 20k attacker. So a little weaker than the Almac, which can hit 15, but also way more flexible than that card, which is what makes this more appealing. And the other cool thing is, I love seeing more cards explore this sort of concept. When discarded from hand during your ride phase, you can essentially call it to rearguard circle. This time for a Soul Blast cost. It makes sense to be costed. It can't all be just Pillage Aggro, but that card's kind of crazy. But yeah, that seems good. Soul Blast call itself. Now you can start aggressing with it. Of course, if your Vanguard isn't grade 3 yet, it won't gain any power shield, but if it is grade 3, like discard for a grade 3 ride-up, you're getting that stuff. So I like that. Just kind of support more early offense plays, play off of the ride deck. I think this kind of fits in. And it is, I find that first effect generally interesting from a design perspective because it's giving Alden a different dimension that not all decks necessarily have, because not all decks have a discard Soul Blast, or discard to call the unit back to be able to use for aggression. So good card and interesting card overall. I'm excited to try this out in Alden, and I'm curious to see how to balance that Soul Blast. Might want to bump up the Wedge Fluence Dragon to make sure to just have some soul for everything. So that is Keter Sanctuary. Moving right along to Stoicheia, we have a we did talk about Mythisch. I was like, wait a minute, we've only seen one Mythisch, but yeah, we've got another Mythisch here. But we've got a new deck in the Beucrea, and supporting the Mythisch because, well, we had to show off that character was showing up talking to Kagetsu at the end of the previous season. And also, well, it's always fun and interesting new characters that mean new ride lines. So the only new non-Phantom ride line from the set, notably. And this one plays around these magic cards and grand magic cards. And you can kind of quickly see the vision with this card alone, that then about attacks counterbalance one, restands drive becomes 0. And then when you play a grand magic or activate the ability of a magic card in your order zone, you can give a unit power plus 5k, so a way to buff it and just generate an extra attack here. And then on top of that, you can activate a magic ability, which will become more relevant once we actually talk about the magic effects. Not the most interesting card. It kind of reads as the interesting thing should be those magic cards, and then this just does good stuff off of that. And because, well, we need some sort of offense with this, it just restands itself just because. I don't know why they've had this with the new Stoicheia ride lines recently. Or Counterblast 1, just stand something. I mean, the non-clear just stood a rear guard circle because why not? And this feels like Counterblast 1 stand itself because why not? So definitely not the most interesting design, but it's definitely a good effect. It feels very Dragonic Overlord in Stoicheia, for better or for worse. But let's actually talk about these magic cards, because those are super important, and you can see them all here. So you can only run one of them in the deck, but as you, I'll show you the grade 1. The grade 1 just kind of places them right away, so you don't have to worry about them getting damage checked. But in Order Zone, they have their own act effects, and notably, was it when you would be called? Oh, that's more. We'll get to that in a second. But all these will have their own act effect in Order Zone that you can activate them simply by resting it once you have a grade 3 with Magic Caster in this card name to do something. The grade 3 here, Healing Magic Exionus, probably mispronouncing that, but we'll go with it. Feels not, well, it's just simply call a non-sentinel normal unit from a drop to rear guard. So that non-sentinel part, oh, it's because of Ghost Chase, isn't it? Oh man, I miss running Ghost Chase. That was a fun card to do some shenanigans with. Hold on, Zorgo's Looping Persona Rise. I mean, you could do this in any Stoicheia deck. You still could. Choose one of your units. It gets power plus 5,000 until end of that battle. Choose one of your rear guards not being attacked and return it to your hand. That's probably why this card needs to specify that. Because it's a repeatable every single turn revive, so you can just loop PGs, and as long as you got a Ghost Chase in hand, you get a PG back. That's silly. But that aside, yeah, it's just a way to bring it back. And all these also have the restriction that you cannot rest any other magic cards in your Order Zone unless it's by the ability of your unit with Magic Caster. So that's why Beocrea can essentially bypass this effect. So the idea is to use Beocrea to activate a second one of these, so you're getting 2 of them per turn, being able to distribute 5k twice in that turn. Yeah, this one, be able to bring back something, though notably its other continuous effect says that that unit's auto abilities do not activate from that call, so you can't cheat certain auto abilities. It's obviously just a balancing thing. So okay, just a repeatable revive every single turn. That is definitely good. I don't know if it's necessarily all that interesting. You know, Stoicheia also feels, I would say Stoicheia feels like the appropriate place for drop zone revival, but when it says healing magic, it doesn't feel very much like healing versus reviving. So thematics, I'm kind of questioning it, but that aside, it's definitely a good card. And you have access to every single turn, which is also what makes that feel really, really good. Probably also why they needed that restriction. The grade 2, on the other hand, I don't know why I said on the other hand. The grade 2, what it does is that essentially once per fight, you can rest it to draw a card. That's just a good effect. And then every subsequent use of this card, you can just rest it to draw a card and discard a card from hand. Notably, both of these, this one and the previous one, it was Growth Magic Voxel. I can pronounce that one. But they check your Vanguard's grade. So essentially, like your grade 1 can't activate this one or the revive one. You have to be at grade 2 for this one, grade 3 for the other one. Makes sense. Excuse me. So this one's obviously good, just a free plus. So your ride line just thins your deck of 3 cards, and then once you're on turn 2, draw the card. We'll get into that because that's insane. And then from there's just some hand filtering. Okay, not very interesting, but not bad. I mean, if you want, you can get a card drop, revive it. Sure. These are all commons. I think I said they're rare, so I can blame us. They're just commons. And then we have Enhanced Magic Sterile King. And this is just a simple plus 5k. Yeah, that's about it. On the one hand, it's like, these aren't very interesting cards individually. And neither is Beocrea. Like, the concept is cool. Build up magic cards, be able to use them, like your spell book. You always have access to them every single turn, so you get to use 2 of these. And not the same one, but 2 of them repeatedly. So from a power level perspective, it kind of makes sense why these are kind of generic and not seem the most powerful, because you just kind of have access to them whenever and repeatable across every single turn. So the value can really stack up on these. Like this one card over the course of the multiple turns just generates a lot of free advantage in terms of revive. So I can kind of understand. What I was trying to get is I can understand why these are probably not the most exciting in terms of like gameplay mechanics. Like you're pretty much just combining a bunch of small stuff together and hoping that cascades into something bigger. And that does seem good as long as it works. That's where I'm like, will this work? I mean, obviously it'll work, but how effective will that be? That's going to be a gameplay question. But yeah, it's just not necessarily the most mechanically or design interesting. I feel like the idea of having a spell book seems super cool, and I guess I wish Barocrea just did something more interesting with it. I think that's the best way to put it. But anywho, for the ride deck, we've got the Apprentice Magicaster Barocrea for a Soul Blast when it's placed. Just lets you search out those 3 cards, send them to your order zone, and if you put one from hand, you draw 1. So Soul Blast 1, deck thin 3, or deck thin 2, draw a card. Hopefully you're not draw all of them, or else that sucks. But yeah, that's a really, really good rate, especially since one of those cards lets you draw a card once you get to turn 2. Like, you just this card essentially reads deck thin 3, draw a card. That's insane for this deck. I always think a Ranker Chain. It's a bit more specific, but drawing 2 cards deeper in deck was great. And this just reads different kind of insane from that one. But yeah, I just can't get over this deck thins from 3 and deck thins deck winning, especially when you've got a restanding Vanguard, which we'll get to why that matters in a moment. The grade 2 Barocrea just says that you can look at top 7, choose 2 cards from among them, discard, shuffle your deck. Obviously just set up for reviving stuff. You're still deck thinning too. Like, this is deck thinning an insane amount. I don't even say insane amount. This is deck thinning a lot. That being said, I wonder where I've seen this before. Looking at the Regnus grade 2. Yeah, not the most original card. And I do genuinely wish that they did something a bit more interesting with this card as well than it just being the Regnus grade 2. Definitely benefits the deck very well. And we have to go over the Grand Magic card. Eternal Grand Magic, Sergre Lejois. I'm guessing it's French, or at least French adjacent. But this card, one of the flavor texts is super cool. O Earth, bring forth the laws of cycles. O Evergreen, bring forth the breath of nature. O Air, bring forth the torrent of souls. Now revitalize the origin of life. That's a cool effect. And kind of makes more sense why the healing magic can revive if it's origin of life, even though that card doesn't directly do that. So maybe a bit of a miss there, but that aside, what does this card even do? 1 can be played from drop zone, so that makes sense. The grade 2 can mill because they can now mill this card. And why are we having another order card play itself from drop? Just saying. I'm tired of seeing this. But what does it do? And that is just your Vanguard Stride just not decreased by that use effect this turn. So this is where like you really see this deck come together. You're deck thinning a ton, and then you just build up a board, build up a bunch of power, swing at Barocrea twice. She doesn't lose drive checks because of the Grand Magic card. And notably, your opponent Vanguard does need to be grade 3 or greater to use this, so you cannot do this on turn 1. So it's not, you can't be that insane. Obviously, that's just a good card because it means that your Barocrea now drive checks 2 more for just a counterblast, and that's a straight +2, mind you, because you're playing this card from drop. Holy cow. So this deck definitely has a lot of good things going to it. Like, the vision, again, is very clear with this deck. I just don't think it's very mechanically interesting and very vanilla deck. You're playing it because you like the aesthetics, not because the gameplay, I think, is going to be all that interesting. But maybe I'll change my mind once I play it. I mean, it's not bad to have just a simple, straightforward deck where you just jam stuff. And I say simple and straightforward, but there are still some key decisions you have to make. What do you revive? Which of these do you use? So, depending on how intriguing the choice is here, that could also help with this deck feeling interesting to play. What about the other support cards? Because this deck has a Mythisch of Eternity, Nilsviger. That's all I'm going to try. And this card essentially has 3 effects that you only gain when your Vanguard's Barocrea. First one is that when it's recovered from the healing magic, it's not affected by its contained space. So it does get there on place. It's going to be the one exception. And I find it so funny because they wanted to print a repeatable revive every single turn. This card needed an extra 2 lines of text just to get it to behave the way they want to. Design can be weird like that sometimes, man. We're going to hope that a revive every single turn is worth it to do this to this card and add multiple lines of text to both those cards. But that aside, When the team is placed on rear Zorga combo boss 1, look at top 5, choose a barrier creates card name 1 damage from them, reveal it, put your hand shuffle your deck, not reveal a card, draw a card. Cool. Combo boss 1, draw a card. Perfect. And because it just checks your Vanguard's name, not grade, and all the grade 2 is barrier create, you can call it on turn 1 or turn 2 as well for combo boss 1 to just draw a card, or even better, you can search for a key piece. That's good. Better than a combo boss 1, draw 1. And then we grave your attacks, gains +5. This is just Bellicosity Dragon. There's other Dragon Empire cards that scale based on the attack of your Vanguard. I was just thinking Bellicosity because I was playing Brawlers, and while it doesn't actualize the full power because it's designed with like Overlord in mind, still though, same concept. Basically, this thing, as long as your rare creator attacks twice, is plus 10k. Sweetener. So, definitely not an interesting Mythisch. This is just does good stuff to support the deck, just kind of the general theme of like, you're really there for the magic stuff, the thematics, and hope the decision, I think, between the magics are interesting. Otherwise, the cards just do good stuff, not necessarily very complicated, intricate, interesting stuff. It's just very straightforward in what it does. And yeah, this card's no different. It's no Rifistor. Like, Rifistor is like the crazy Sentinel restrict big power bash for the game. That was cool. Yeah. And you know, seeing that with other Mythisch, we see this like the Dark States one, the Carvanil. Again, I didn't think it was very interesting, so I guess that's just going to be a trend right now. We'll see with the Varga one. Hopefully that one will be interesting, because that would be the only one missing. Yeah, that's the only one missing after the set. Hoping for that one to be interesting, which I don't actually remember what it does. We'll see. When I actually end up going over that set. Because Lyrical does have one, but I don't play Lyrical, so I can't really speak to this one. We'll read it after. Let's finish up with Stoicheia first, though. Continue with the cards to support Barrier Creator. We've got the Amiable Fairy. What does this do again? Place some Rigor with Barrier Creator's card. Look top 3 card, choose 1 card from one, then discard off your deck. Okay, deck thinning good. Just kind of further playing to Barrier Creator. Just slam triggers win. With 2 attacks, for 2 jar attacks each. When you attacks, if you upgrade the Barrier Creator, place some Rigor or drop. Plus 50k. That's a big number as well. And really helps support, like, you don't necessarily need to distribute the power from Barrier Creator, just focus it on her with the restand, because this can gain a bunch of power, and is obviously the called target that you want to call off of the revival magic. Though, obviously, you won't be getting its on place effect, because that would be too good, just a repeatable mill. So, again, it just does good stuff for the deck, not necessarily interesting, just good stuff. And then finally, we've got the Trita, which is a drop revival. Yeah, just a free drop revival. Okay, sure. Don't know why this one needs to revive itself. And let's see, can intercept from the back row and 15k shield for Energy Blast. Hey, it's costed. Can't say that about a lot of cards. Again, and not very interesting, but does add to the overall output of the deck. I don't know if this is necessarily worth playing. 3 revival, 15k shield. I don't know, that'll be an interesting thing to test. This one's a bit hard because, like, is this better than some other generic thing you can run? Because the deck does not need this to function. It's just bonus on top of it. So that'll be a big question as well. So, Barrier Creator, I think the concept of setting up 3 magic cards they can repeatedly use is cool. Everything else is just straightforward, just generic good stuff, and yeah, you're just restanding Vanguard, slaying for a bunch of stuff. I sound rather negative because I definitely have been feeling, while I've absolutely loved seeing all these new designs and how the thematics they choose to explore, like, I've genuinely been loving Vanguard right now. I cannot help but see these design stuff and say, wow, I feel like they could be doing more interesting stuff. And I think it's just mostly the repeatable stuff here. So I'm probably getting more flack for Barrier Creator than it actually needs to, because sometimes a nice, simple, straightforward deck is a good thing. Like, not all decks need to be super complex. And so I wonder if there was just less of the call from drop stuff and a lot of homogeneity, this wouldn't feel as bad. It wouldn't be like a very interesting deck. It would just kind of be like, okay, simple deck. It could fit that classification. Then maybe part of that is also just, I was super excited to think, oh, like Magic Cast, and You've got these magic cards. That seems pretty cool. Like, it's kind of itching that Zorga scratch, but didn't really do that. But to be fair, then just go play Zorga, right? So, I genuinely do think that there is something to be said about this being a nice, simple deck to be able to play the game with, at least in terms of what it does. It doesn't seem too complex. Definitely need some of those decks. Again, I think it's just repeatability stuff, and I think the other point before I move on to the next one is just the fact that this is the second new Stoicheia ride line in a close proximity, that third effect is just a simple once per turn counterblast one stand something. I don't think that feels great. We got a new Levidress support card in the Gartise, so furries are happy. And this card, Levidress has felt left behind because it hasn't really, it's been receiving support, but not too much support. Kuon hasn't really had much of a focus, and it's nice to see that it's getting something. So how good is it? Well, counterblast one, either draw a card or revive something. Isn't bad. It's like a better version of the revival card it already had. And then the 3 more infinite gains 5k until that battle, so it's also a big attacker as well. So this doesn't do anything like profound. It's just a solid upgrade to an existing card that's technically a bit more flexible than it. Though notably, this does not work until you have Infinity Dice markers, so it's not like an early game aggro card. Like, it's not that good. Which, to be fair, I don't think every deck needs that, even though it is genuinely like a notable weakness. Like, decks need to be able to make up that difference if it's not putting out some early aggression, or be able to stave stuff off. And I kind of get it. If decks are doing more, especially in the early game, then you need ways to do more as well. And so and the easiest way to do it, cards play onto board, use effect. That's the easiest way to do that. So I'm wondering how much that's actually going to affect the card, the fact that it does not work. It can't be a turn 2 call to draw a card at least. But it's obviously just a better utility, not even utility card, just a better supporting card for Levidress. Wow, tongue-tied. It definitely doesn't do something like unique or highly interesting for the deck. It's just something that is good. That's about it. So we'll see how it actually feels in Levidress. I'm a bit worried it's going to be one of those things where Levidress has kind of just fallen so far behind without more consistent support, and this just isn't high quality enough to really help it keep up. It's like a little band-aid, not a full-on repair. That's not a good way to put it. It's just like, I can't think of a good analogy, but basically it needs something more impactful than just this. That's what I'm trying to get at. Oh, I think time's really catching up to me here. It's almost 11 at night that I'm filming this, so let's try to push through the rest of this. We're almost done here. Next up, we've got a Leonorn support card in Crowan, and this card's cool. It's a base 10k shield, base 15k power. So really exploring how much we can push the base stats on a card, and that's interesting because they don't normally do this. So obviously, with a card like that pushes these sorts of things, it needs to have a healthy restriction on it. Cannot be rated. Makes sense. Don't want to just be able to ride a 15k stat unit. If your Vanguard is without Leonorn, See, this is why I need to wrap up because I'm getting tongue-tied. If you have a Vanguard with Leonorn in its card name, this unit cannot attack or boost. If you do not have a Vanguard with Leonorn in its card name, it cannot attack or boost. Okay, so just lock to Leonorn. Leonorn gets this card, nothing else can. And then drop when your grade 3 or grade Vanguard is placed. If you don't have Vanguard the same name, Soul Blast 1 with card with Soul Blast 1 card with Leonorn in its card name, call this card to Rearguard Circle. Cool. So it can revive itself, but specifically you need to be able to Soul Blast Leonorns to be able to do that. So basically saying, like, in the late game, like, yeah, you can call this card from hand. That's not an issue. Can't be written, like, let me double check. Yeah. But the revival, is very limited in what it does because it's an overstated card. That's not too bad. 10k card to guard, then bring it back, you got a 15k booster. And wait a minute. See, I read these, I'm like, okay, cool, but I'm not necessarily like thinking like, oh, let me think, how do I fit into the deck? And as I'm reading this out loud, hold on, we've got Rosarium Fairy. Rosarium Fairy plus 15k. I mean, you have this Sincerette, which bumps stuff up to 20k, so obviously, like, buffing this up to 20k is less impressive than buffing, like, one of your other 8k boosters. In which case, you could prioritize Rosarium Fairy there. But still, before, if you don't want to use your Sincerets yet, that's a great booster. Like, just boost Rosarium Fairy with this. Rosarium Fairy copy it. That's a 38k Rosarium Fairy on your first grade 3 turn, because there is no other restrictions on this thing. That's really cool. So, like, to me, this is an interesting support card because it explores the plus 10k shield, plus, increasing the stats on this card. The drop effect is obviously good because being able to bring it back, help build a board, that's good. Don't ask me why this thing can revive itself. I don't know. So that's a bit of a design thematic thing for me that I'm like, I don't necessarily like that. But from power level, it's obviously good because you can recur itself. And again, I think the most interesting part is just messing with base stat totals. That's super cool. And I think this will be a good card for Leonore. I'm excited to test it out. That is it. Oh, I have to just call out the Goofy Wombat. Why? I don't know. It's cool. It's just a silly little card. No, nothing else to be said there. So that is it for Stoicheia. On the lyrical side, we do have the new Magnolia Phantom. I'm not actually playing this card. Didn't want to call it out. So I don't really have too many comments. But I did want to look at this Mythisch here. Your Urtineus, because since I was saying the Mythisch this set don't feel all that interesting. Like Rufistor, let's see if this Mythisch seems all that interesting. I don't know Chris Rain, so we'll see if I can actually say. Discard for during your turn, look at top 5, choose up one Chris Rain's card name, reveal it, put it in a shuffle deck. That's right off of the Dual Nation support card. Just free way to help find extra Chris Rains. Okay. A more narrow in application, but sure, if you can find one, that's cool. Drop Chris Rain, call it to Rearguard Circle. Oh, that's relevant because excuse me. This is relevant because I can see your 5th attack. That's powerful. When the attack chosen by, if this unit shows by your base turn, or this shows placed on rears, or by the effect card with same name this turn, this unit gets 5k until the end of the battle. If your opponent's fingers greater than your it's 10k instead of 5k. If you've got 10k effect, and user divine skill else gets 5k. So it's just a big beater. It clearly works well with Chris Rain's divine skill. You just bring it back. Otherwise, it's not a very interesting card because it's just a big beater. Though I do like it playing off of discard. Though I don't know why it calls itself from drop. Why does these things revive itself? Yeah, I just don't know Chris Rain well enough to really say. I love it messing with discard stuff. That's cool to help find stuff more consistently. And I like that's a key piece, not just call anything. Like the key piece thing feels appropriate for other nations to look at top 5. And obviously just an extra attack for divine skill is going to be good. That's all I really have to say about it. So, okay. All that out of the way, the final thing I want to talk about before we end off this video is the Frieren collab. So I'm not going to go through all these cards because I just now read them for the first time today after not really having read them. It was a lot with older cards. I still haven't read them all. But there's a few things I wanted to kind of call out that I thought were really cool. For starters, it's how the ride line really shows off the story of the show. And I love it. So the Frieren deck, because you can split it into, there's 3 deck builds, Frieren, Fern, and Stark. Frieren, its ride line starts with Himmel the hero, which makes sense. Her journey started with Himmel wanting to form a party, Himmel trying to get Frieren to join. He successfully did, so you've got the grade 2 being Frieren and Himmel together, and then into Frieren herself. So it kind of showed that journey where she went on the journey started with Himmel, joining his crowd, seeing a bunch of stuff, where she became the character she was at the start of Frieren Beyond's journey end. And that is where I love where Stark and Fern's ride line goes. It starts with Frieren, who formed the party, and then of course her first one she brought to the party was Fern. So that's where you see the grade 1 with Frieren and Fern. The grade 2 is the 3 of them. They finally brought on Stark, and then that goes into either Fern or Stark. It's so cool. Like the before the story stuff, how did Frieren get to where she wanted? And then the second one was, what is Frieren doing in the show to build up these 2 new characters? Yeah, I just, when I saw it, I was just like, that is so good. So we'll just kind of briefly go over what these do. Notably, these are all Keter Sanctuary, so you can use Keter Sanctuary cards to round it out. And I do like they're kind of dipping into the nations instead of them just being their own thing. That way, you can better support those decks and bolster them with the generic support they have. So Frieren's whole thing is around grimoires, which feels very appropriate for her character. She's always wanting to get new grimoires and new spells, and this is exactly what this is. So she's got simple act Vanguard effect to counter boss 1, to do all the following according to number of grimoires in your order zone. So building up the grimoires in her collection. She does more. Makes sense. More spells at her disposal. Draw cards good. This unit gets all your friendly units get power plus 5k at end of turn. That's good effect. And 7 more, this unit gets drive plus 1. Also good effect. Nothing too crazy here. But obviously the grimoires are the interesting part. Just needs to do good stuff off the grimoires. And then you can, this part effect is really cool. Act Vanguard once per turn. Energy blast any number. Choose a grimoire from your order zone for each energy blast 1 paid for the cost. If all the chosen cards have different card names, activate all their original auto abilities. And that is super interesting. For starters, variable energy blast. You could save up 10 energy and energy blast 10 for this. That is so cool. Like, I wish that Vanguard proper, not the collab stuff, would explore this stuff more. That's so interesting. This almost feels like Barracrea could have done something like this. Like, wouldn't that be so cool? Like, set those cards and then energy blast a variable amount to activate a number of their effects or something to that effect. That'd be so cool. But alas, it's on this card. So that's really cool. And then just activate a bunch of grimoire effects. That feels thematic too. So I like that. Oh no. What have I done to myself? We'll be opening these in a new tab apparently. So yeah, and you've got all of these kind of effects. I haven't read through all of them. Some of them read actually pretty good. So there seems to be a lot of output for this, depending on which ones you go with. Like, let's just go with the, what is the, it's not Alt tab, Shift tab? I don't remember. Fine, we'll do this. Judra Gym. Ugh. So what is its effect? Oh, that's a normal order for Frieren. What does it do? Energy blast 2 if your Frieren is card name represents from its grade through greater. Choose a column, retire your opponent's red in the column. Choose one of your fingers on a turn. Gets to your friend. Rogue's power. This is cool, by the way. Oh, yeah, that's just a good order card. See, I missed this originally, and there's a Tethvault reprint with the Mage of a Peaceful Era Frieren. That's just Tethvault. And it's like, well, Frieren's all set orders. How do you use it? Well, there's how you use it. By the way, cool to get a Tethvault reprint, since that is, I would say it's needed, but I'm pretty sure it's getting reprinted this summer anyway. That aside, let's actually focus on what I was going to look up is what do these do? Let's see, we've got magic that turns sweet grapes into sour ones. So on brand. Let's see, auto, when the team is put into order zone, choose a card for your hand, and you may discard. If you discard a card, choose a non-sentinel grade 2 or less, nor for or an order card without regular space from your drop, put into your hand. So a simple utility effect, and I think that's kind of what I expected most of these to be, is just simple utility effects, like magic that produces shaved ice, or don't draw a card. I mean, hey, that's pretty good. Just draw a card. What else do we got here? You may choose a trigger unit other than one from your drop. You chose a card, return to your deck, shuffle it. These are pretty good. Like, this is kind of what you like to see for being able to tutor out these sorts of effects. You may call a plant token to rear cards. Okay. See, I'm reading these cards. I'm like, why aren't these what Barracrea does? This is so much more interesting. Just a ton of cool little utility effects you get to choose from. Okay, I'll digress there. What does Fern do? We'll just kind of go overhead. Fern, appropriately, just knowing basic magic, plays off of Zoltrak. So all your Fern gets power plus 5 for every 2 Zoltrak. You can actually run up to 8 Zoltrak, as you will see. It'll be plus 20k if you can get there. However, that's a lot of Zoltrak's play, since you only play 1 per turn, starting with the first grade 3 turn. Or not first grade 3 turn, your grade 1 turn if you have it. And then this is cool. When you play Zoltrak, counter boss 1, stand this unit. It attacks your opponent's Vanguard, and its drives become 0 until end of that battle. Then a battle stand this unit, and if you're stand this unit. If your opponent's Vanguard's grade 3 or greater drive becomes 1 instead of 0. This is cool. Attacking during your main phase in response to you just playing Zoltrak. So you do Zoltrak, Fern attacks, just offensive magic. Don't be confused by the stand. It just needs to stand to make sure you can stand to attack as you rest it. But it's just getting an extra Vanguard attack. It's just during your main phase. So that's really cool. And then discard card from your hand. Check top 7 for up to 1 grade 2. Frieren, Stark, San Yubel, land, or Heiter in its card name from among the revealed put your hand and shuffle your deck. So just a great way to switch out a card from hand into utility effect. Feels very Keter Sanctuary. Grab your allies together. Then we'll go over Zoltrak itself, since that's so important to Fern. And it's a grade 1 normal order. I love that they're all the sideways profiles. It's so cool. If this will load. Let's see if I can just search up Frieren. This might be easier. So I want to talk about these. Let's see. There we go. Perfect. That's exactly what I want to see. So we got Zoltrak here. Grade 1, you run up to 8 of them. Can be played from drop. Only thing, like, why? But for Energy Blast 1, so super cheap, like playing with energy. I love it. Like, what is appropriate for an Energy Blast cost? Obviously it binds itself. That's how you build a bind for Fern's power gain. Choose one of your opponent's rearguards to retire if you did not retire, or your opponent's Vanguard's grade 3 or greater. Choose one of your Vanguards and gets power plus 5k. That's just a good effect. Board control and or power. Nothing else to say there. And it can just starting with your first grade 3 turn, not even first, just from the very get-go. Like going second, just swing 13k Vanguard. Seems so good. And then we have Stark, Village Hero Stark, which if you're not show, yes, it's Stark. Not Stark, Stark. But this one, if your opponent's Vanguard's grade 3 or greater, all your front units get power plus 5,000. Warrior, just bolster it. That feels very Keter Sanctuary. When this unit attacks, combat 1, choose one of your rear guards, stand it. I know I've bashed on this effect, but as a sweetener effect for this one feels appropriate. Just relentless hero attack, something simple to, but that's not the focus of this. Like, you're capturing the thematics elsewhere. So I don't know. I feel less strongly about this sort of effect on this one. Whatever that says about me and my perception of Vanguard right now. But the other one is when this unit attacks, discard a card from hand. This unit gets power plus, is attacked. You can discard a card from hand to get plus 15k. So just extra defense. That's cool on a Vanguard. Just once from just discard a 5k or even a no shield card, and just boom, extra 15k power to help defend. That's really cool as well. And I like that it's a discard. It's not just a free 15k shield. You're pretty much just saying, hey, I'm just giving you a card 15k shield. And then this card's cool. Just really the vigor of a warrior. When your damage check reveals Dragon Slaying Strike or a Frieren card with Stark in its card name, if your damage zone is 5 or more cards, choose a card from your damage zone, heal it, and you cannot heal with your Vanguard's ability until the end of this fight. So just a once per turn heal, kind of like Rezile's effect, but for specific cards. And that's so cool. Just a warrior's vigor. Like, this card feels like a strong warrior, just bolstering your allies, defending itself, and putting on pressure. So I really like that. And then what is the order card for this one? Dragon Slaying Strike. Again, can be played from drop. Obviously, this is good because you're discarding, and same with Fern, like you're discarding cards. So obviously, if you're running up to 8 of these orders, just a good way to filter it out, but you still have access to use it. So it makes sense for playability if I don't love all these orders doing that, because you're essentially playing them for free. Like, what's the point in the whole, like, I don't know, to me, it takes away from the order effect. Like, yeah, part of it is an inherent neg 1. Let's explore that. But anyway, what does this do? Obviously, bind it. Gotta get it out of there so you can play it from drop. Choose one of your Vanguards until end of turn. It gets auto Vanguard Star once unit attacks hits. You may draw a card and power plus 5,000 if your opponent's Vanguard's grade 3 or greater, 10k instead of 5k. So obviously, just bolstering your Vanguard. And it is a grade 2 dueling, comes down on the second turn. But still, just play this card. Vanguard gets 5k, swing 15k. That's good aggression. And when it hits, you're starting a draw for free. Like, that's straight blessing. But I also like that's an on-hit, especially since it's free, because now your opponent has agency in the matter. And the other cool thing is I believe there's a card that lets your Stark hit a column, so now it has to defend both. I don't think it's this one. This one's also a restander, which is cool, just extra warrior grit to be able to keep pressuring the opponent. The ubiquitous drop effect, if you have the same name as this and you do something, call it rearguard circle. Don't ask me why Stark can revive itself. I don't know. I think it's the Eisen here. Back row center, rear guard circle. If you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Stark in its card name, rest unit, choose one of your Vanguard until end turn. It gets, when this unit attacks, it bows your opponent's units in a column and 5k. So that's really cool. Still gets some power. Oh, and the soul charge. I like this. It's like Stark's Mentor Eisen supporting Stark to do what he wants to. That's another cool effect. And then gives you extra opportunity to draw some cards. So yeah, all in all, I love the thematics here. while these, I don't know if these will necessarily be able to stand up to modern day Vanguard decks. Excuse me. Honestly, I don't care because they feel so thematic, and I really like that about these. So, and it's something I'd love to see more of with Vanguard proper overall, just more rich theming. But I will say what really helps that is that there is an established IP with it to really base like what feels thematic off of, versus some stuff like, what's thematic for Alphard? And I also think it's fair to say that I just love really rich thematic stuff as well. I love the deeper stuff. And that always make me kind of look at stuff like Bear Crit, just kind of like, I wish it did more. Even though I think there's something to be said about simpler decks. But that is it for set 13. This is a really long video. I hope you have enjoyed kind of listening to my thoughts, my rambles about all of it. And it's been a blast to film and just kind of get my thoughts out here ahead of the set. So now I want to pass it off to you all. What are you excited for in the set and why? If you've enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like, subscribing, and turning on the notification bell so you're notified when I do upload more content. As I start testing stuff, I usually like to make deck profiles, so you can expect those to be sprinkled in throughout this set. And yeah, with that being said though, look forward to more content coming out real soon.